Welcome to another session. I hope you are well. In the session I covered previously, the last two sessions to be more precise, I made reference to the importance of understanding how we are sometimes explicitly or implicitly addicted to something. Diet, food, substances we consume, sometimes our lifestyles. Um, I made reference to the fact that the human body requires energy. We feed the body with what we believe to be an energy seed, and we hope that it produces much fruit. From an evolutionary perspective, the body generates energy in several ways. In today's session, therefore, I want to talk about how the body generates energy. Now, humans, we're very unique. I'm sure you would agree. Compared to any other life form, we are the highest of all life forms. We've also been given this unique ability called the power of choice. Unlike animals that run on instinct and the genetic code, human beings have been gifted with an intellect. We have an intellectual faculties, and how we use our intellectual faculties allow us to create our world, our emotional state, and decide the level of well-being we experience. But with regards to generating energy, humans are also very unique in that we have this ability to run on two different types of fuels. Ketones, which comes from fat and fiber, and glucose, which comes from starches and sugar. In the session I covered previously, I made reference to how I had this addiction to sugars and carbohydrates for many, many years, and I wasn't aware of this. In many ways, my addiction was fueled by the ignorance in society, because we are told, if you follow the NHS pyramid for nutrition, we are told and we're made to believe that sugars and carbohydrates and starches are more important than fat and fiber and protein. Human beings can run on two fuels. Let's take a step back and understand how that has evolved, because I think this is key. Remember, the best fit line across all of these sessions is understanding depression and getting past, overcoming the whole challenge of depression, the whole challenge of anxiety, fatigue, etc. If human beings have the ability to run two fuels, think about a car that has actually dual fueled. It means that if you were driving and you were running on, say, petrol and diesel, just imagine that your car had the ability to run on petrol and diesel. If you were traveling from London to Scotland and you were driving a car that had a total fuel tank capacity of about 50 litres, it would mean you would have to stop regularly if you were going to Aberdeen, Scotland, assuming that it would have taken about 450 miles. You might have to do several stops to fill up the car so you have that amount of energy to get you to your destination. If you were running on one fuel type, only petrol, and you got to the first petrol station and you filled up, and you got to the second one and there was no petrol, and you decided to drive to the third one and there was no petrol, you would start to panic. As a matter of fact, the car might stop along the way and you will not be able to get to your destination except you put more energy into the tank. The car will bring you to a standstill because it will start to shut down because there isn't enough energy delivery to the various systems. If on the other hand your car had dual fuel and you got to the first petrol station and there was petrol, but you went to the second one and there was no petrol but there was diesel, you could have filled up the car with diesel and that would have got you to the next station, and at the next station perhaps you could have filled it back with petrol or even diesel. The point being that you have what we call dual optionality, the ability and the option that you could exercise with regards to the type of fuel you used. Humans work in the same analogy as cars. We're very unique. We have the ability to run on two fuels, ketones and glucose. Now, over time, for many years, this offered an evolutionary advantage. Think about this. I know we have the lights and we have the sockets and we have the various infrastructure, we have the innovation, the technology that makes life a lot easier today. But if you go back to evolutionary times and think about caveman, how did caveman live? How did cave woman live? Most people back in time lived according to seasons. So you went through various seasons: autumn, winter, spring, summer. Fundamentally, what people had to consume was based on what they were able to gather or hunt or kill, more precisely. So we were carnivores from an evolutionary perspective, but we ate with the seasons. It meant in the summer we hunted, it was nice and warm so we could hunt. But as we went into the autumn, there was an autumn harvest: fruits, root vegetables, the pulses, and more. And so we snacked on those because it was available. But more importantly, when you have sugars and starches, it shunts into fats, which is great for the winter. So the people who were able to have access to two fuels survived the terrible winters. You and I can sit in the comfort of our homes and we can switch on the HVAC system if you are in parts of North America. In the UK and in parts of Europe, we don't use the word HVAC, we'll use other things. In the UK, we use building services. You might see switch on the radiator or the heating system, but we can create an internal environment that is very different to the external environment. It might be -4 on the outside, but inside your living room it's 21 degrees. Why? Technology. But in the hunter-gatherer days, in the old days, they did not have the infrastructure or the ability to regulate the environment. They hadn't developed the intellectual faculties to be able to tap into the genius that they knew that they had, but were not aware of. Those who could hunt and who were great hunters were able to survive periods like the spring and the summer and partway through the autumn. But if they refused the available dual fuel, sugars and starches, they mostly died during the winter because there was no hunting, or there's very little hunting. It was very cold and people hibernated. We didn't have coats and jackets that kept you warm. We didn't have houses that were air conditioned. They lived in caves. Making fire was hard. So those actually who had the ability to find and reap the harvests of the autumn had a huge, absolutely huge evolutionary advantage. They got through the winter. And at the end of the winter, remember, it was an autumn harvest, the fruits and the root vegetables came to an end. So they deferred back to us. They went back into the spring, into hunting and looking for game. This is very important. In the West, most of us, we live off only one fuel, glucose. So we're running on, primarily living on sugars and starches predominantly. We've also been conditioned by, you might say by design, or you might say by ignorance, to shun all of the good ways of actually, of the past, running on ketones, fiber and fats. Now this brings me to a conversation about what we call metabolic syndrome and how you can identify metabolic syndrome. You might be listening to me over the past few minutes and thinking, I don't have a clue what he is talking about. Well, let me give you a simple way of understanding what I am talking about. Think about the next time you go to the shops to shop. Look into your shopping trolley and look at the contents of what is in your trolley. Even if you are not going shopping in the next day or two, look back historically, last week, the week before, and think about which foods regularly appear in your shopping basket. What do you normally buy? Question 2. What do you normally eat for breakfast? What do you have during the day? What do you have for snacks? What do you have for supper? What do you drink? Do you find you just drink water? You drink tea? Or do you find you have to mix it up with coffee, energy drinks, some form of glucose induced a drink, energy drinks, as I said before? Or do you find you're having orange juice and pineapple juice and fruit juice and this juice and cranberry juice and some juice which contain artificial sweeteners? Number 4, number 5, can't remember. Would you suffer if you went through a period in the day where you missed a snack or you missed a meal? Think about this. Let's say you went for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours and you were working. Would you find that you suffer in terms of your level of concentration and focus and attentiveness and discipline and ability to think clearly? Or do you start to have this foggy brain and feeling of, I can't concentrate, I can't work, I'm not getting the best output? So do you find that you suffer if you miss or if you have missed a snack or a meal? Number 5, number 6. Do you find actually that for some reason, even when you eat, you're never satiated? There's a need for more, and there's a need for more, and the need for more. Now, the last part I have suffered. I mentioned this in sessions prior. I said I used to eat every 2 hours. I would wake up at 5 in the morning. I would be in the office for usually between 5:45 and 6 in the morning. I'd have my breakfast at 6:30. At 8:30, I would have 2 hours later, and I'd have another breakfast. I have another snack, mid-morning snack at roughly about 11 o'clock, sometimes prior. Then I have my lunch at 1:30, sometimes 1. At 3:30, I needed another snack. Roughly around 5, 6, I needed to boost because I was going to go sometimes to the gym afterwards. So you take your Mars bar, you have your Snickers, or you have something that gives you that energy boost, gets you ready. And then I'll get back home in the evening and I have dinner. As I was going to bed, or just as I was getting ready to go to bed, I would always have, without fail, something at the side of the bed table, either bananas or apples or some fruit, because like a clock, I would wake up between 1 and 3 in the morning, hungry. And I used to find it weird. It was as though I was possessed by some demon. Imagine, middle of the night, you wake up. It's almost as if someone taps you, and you wake up, and you look to the left, and there's a banana. And there were times when I wouldn't even stand up or sit up. I would lay down there, and I'll eat the banana as though someone is like a druggie, and I'll put the banana peel to the left or to the right, and off I go back to sleep. I was never satiated. I always needed more, more, and more. Now, what you find is that there are symptoms. What I'm describing is a symptom. Do you have any symptoms with regards to feeling that you have an addiction? But even more importantly, are there symptoms that you have that tell you that you're fatigued? In my case, the reason I needed that spike was because I did not have enough good energy production. I did not have, and I needed, because of the level of activities I was engaging in, I needed a lot of energy to get through the day. So I needed constant fuel. It would be the same as someone, I think the best analogy would be, you have a car. You fill up the car with petrol. You're driving from London to Newcastle. But you have to stop every hour to top up the vehicle. Why? Because there is a leak in the fuel tank. If you were to fill up the tank, the car should go from London to Newcastle without stopping. But for some reason, you find actually, as soon as you start to drive, the fuel tank just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and then you have to stop. Why? There's a leak. I was the same way. I needed to fuel, refuel. Why? Because in many ways, I was fueling with the wrong fuel, and there was a leak. I was running off glucose, which comes from sugars and starches. There were symptoms that I was ignoring that were telling me you're fatigued. I was using food and diet to give me a false sense of energy. Now, those are symptoms. In your case, are there signs? Look at yourself and ask yourself, are there signs that tell me that my energy generation and production, based on my fuel source and what is produced, that there's a discrepancy somewhere? For example, are you overweight? Look at the structure of your body. Do you struggle to lose weight? It means your energy generation, production, delivery is not rightly balanced. Do you find actually as a man you have man boobs? You find that you're carrying so much on your waist or several parts of your body? You find actually you're pear-shaped. Now that could also be, in this particular instance, that you're suffering from what we call upper fermenting gut. You suffer from indigestion, you have refluxes, you actually find it's almost as though you're trying to regurgitate. There's a blockage somewhere. You find actually you have joint pains and muscle pains and aches, and you suffer from all these little things. These are all symptoms and signs that something is wrong. But that something that is wrong is connected to what you're feeding the body, and therefore what the body is giving you. See, if you don't like what the body is giving you, then change what you are giving the body. If you find you're depressed and you're fatigued and you're anxious and you always worry, it means you're giving the body something and the body is giving it back to you. See, fascinating that the way the universe works is almost glorious. The universe works and your body works like an incubator. You give it a seed, you incubate it, it multiplies it, and then it gives it back to you. It never gives you back what you give it. It always gives you more. You never reap what you sow, you always reap more. In some cases you reap less, but you never reap what you sow. So in many ways, whatever you are experiencing, it's an indication of what you have given the body. It's also an indication of what you have given your intellect and your mind. Worry and doubt are simply manifestations of something that was given prior. A tree that has fruit is a symbol and a manifestation of a seed that was put in the soil. In order to make a change, you don't actually go to the effect, you go to the cause. And what I'm saying in today's session as I bring it to a close is that there are life choices we make, particularly in this particular instance, dealing with the physical plane. Whatever we give the body by fuel will determine what we get, both in our well-being and in our outputs. And there are two ways that you can fuel the body. You can choose the conventional way, which is what I have done for 20 plus years, which is to feed the body from the glucose fuel, which comes from starches and carbohydrates predominantly. Or you can go via ketones, which comes from fats and fiber. Now, the latter fuel has had so much stigma, and for most people, as you listen to me, you might be thinking this is incredibly idiotic. How can he be saying that ketones are better than glucose? My rebuttal to that will be, go back to primitive man and ask a simple question. How did primitive man and woman survive? From an evolutionary perspective, how did they survive and thrive? Remember, they had no refrigeration, they had no technology, they had no access for home delivery, and therefore they ate according to the seasons. And at the end of the autumn harvest, they had root vegetables, they had fruits, they had pulses, and these were natural, you might say natural glucose fuels, sugars and carbohydrates. But we ate those because we couldn't refrigerate those, we couldn't keep them, we couldn't store them, and therefore they ate those. It gave them an advantage to get past the winter because the carbohydrates and sugars were converted to fats, and that was great for insulating the body and keeping the body alive past the winter. But at the end of the winter, the autumn harvests were gone. So people went back to what they had naturally based on what was available in the environment, which was game. We were carnivores by nature. We ate what we killed, or we ate what we found. I'll leave today's session and I'll leave you with the following statements. You are what you eat. And if you don't like what you are, then you have to change what you're eating.